ABC Sports coverage of the Pan Am Games.
Great passions in Cuba, baseball and boxing. They've already won the gold in baseball. Now they are going to go for 11 gold medals today. They've already won 3 in boxing. And let's go now to Mark Jones.
In Cuba, boxing is a passion. Its seeds are planted in the Cuban youth, where daily young kids dream of being the next Cuban boxing champion, the next Teofilo Stevenson. Those fantasies are played out in reality just yards away at the Sports City Coliseum, where yesterday's dreamers are today's boxing idols. Boxing is a passion. They started lining up as early as 8 o'clock for some of these choice seats. I'm Mark Jones, and welcome to ABC Sports coverage of the Pan American Games Finals. The last time you saw us, we were out at Sala Kid Chocolate in Old Havana. Since that time, we've moved out into the suburbs and into the Sports City Coliseum, where today close to 16,000 people will watch as the Cuban boxing team marches towards an unprecedented 11 gold medals. My partner again today at ringside is Alex Swallow. Alex, the showdown between the Americans and the Cubans was probably one of the most anticipated of these games.
Mark, it's a great rivalry because these are the two superstars of amateur boxing, but the reality is that the United States is only a superpower every 4th year, the Olympic year, because it takes the Olympics to bring out the best American amateurs as they try to use it as a springboard to the fame and fortune of the pros. The Cubans take a totally different approach to tournaments like this because they've been denied the Olympic spotlight for 11 years because of their boycotts. The Cubans really go all out to win Pan American titles. In addition, Mark, they have the added incentive of performing here before all their countrymen.
Alex, we spent 10 days at Sala Kid Chocolate for all the preliminaries. We arrive here, and what exactly have we learned about the Americans?
Well, the American team's performance here was really decided some months ago by American officials who said that the winners of last month's Olympic Festival would go to the World Championships next November, and the second-place finishers would come here to Havana. Even for a B team, the United States performance has been disappointing. 6 out in the first round, 3 to Cubans to be expected, but the 3 others to opponents from lesser powers. The 4 American finalists today will try to salvage some respectability for their teammates. As for the Cubans, they have been awesome. 25 wins, only 1 defeat, more than half inside the distance. A lot of people around here are saying, wouldn't it be amazing if the Cubans won 11 gold medals? I would be amazed if they do not.
Well, this is the featherweight final between Kenneth Friday of the USA and Arnaldo Mesa of Cuba. The Cubans are off to a great start so far.
At 29, you see Kenneth Friday, the oldest of the 105 boxers here. He's shown a lot more life than a lot of the kids on the American team. Career Air Force man, dreams of being a 30-year-old Olympian. But he's got an opponent there that's going to be very tough for him to look good with today. Arnaldo Mesa, only 24, but a veteran of over 250 amateur fights, the 5-time Cuban national champion. And he set the tone for this entire competition, Mark, right from the very first round of the first fight when he scored a 1-punch, 1-round knockout. Kenneth Friday of the U.S., a big underdog in this competition.
Well, Mesa is 5 years younger than his American opponent, Kenneth Friday, the oldest member at 29 years old.
5 years older than the next oldest member of the U.S. team.
Getting ready for the start of round 1. Kenneth Friday wearing the blue shirt, he's on your left, and Arnaldo Mesa of Cuba in the red top, he's on your right.
And for Kenneth Friday, the fact that Mesa is a southpaw is very bad news. Kenneth admits he hates to fight southpaws. He's a slow starter anyway, but it takes him even longer to figure out a southpaw.
I want to mention that 2 out of his 3 wins so far heading into this bout have been against southpaws, and Kenny Friday has done well against both of them. He has won.
But they weren't Arnaldo Mesa.
No, not at all. Mesa, with that right arm extended, keeps it very high.
Yeah, Mesa's got in the red on the left of your screen, a very strange style. He kind of poses in a statue-like with that right. He's flicking it and using a little bit more to score. He used to just measure you with it and try to line up the left. The left hand is Arnaldo Mesa's power punch.
Friday now missing it with the right hand, trying to find the range. Both boxers coming out rather slowly here in the first round.
Kenneth Friday on the right in the blue. His power punch is the right hand. keys everything. He says against the southpaw, he's got to throw the right hand and finish with a left hook. From Mesa's point of view, he almost always gives away some height to his opponent, but Kenneth Friday is very short, with short arms, and the problem for Kenneth Friday of the United States in the blue on the left is always, how do I get inside to score? As long as Mesa is accurate with that jab and keeps sticking it, Kenneth Friday's got a big problem.
Mesa lost in the quarterfinals in the '87 Pan Am Games to Kelsey Banks, although he dropped Banks twice in the bout.
Yeah, and that really is the referee here cautions the Cuban corner for coaching. That really is an interesting subplot here. Arnaldo Mesa on the right, the only Cuban at the '87 Pan Am Games not to get a medal. And he was embarrassed about that. He thought he won that fight. He had dropped Banks twice. And he is one of the more focused and determined Cubans to turn that around.
Kelsey Banks went on to win the gold medal in the '87 Pan Am Games in Indianapolis. Mesa landing a right jab. Friday coming in with the right that falls short.
And tactically, Kenneth Friday of the United States on the left, I think has gotten a break from Arnaldo Mesa here, because Mesa has not come out very fast. He's let Kenneth get through a first round. I mean, Mesa's thrown more punches and scored with more punches, but he has not jumped on Kenneth Friday in a round that Kenneth said is always horrible for him.
And if there's such a thing, Friday has taken the Cuban crowd out of the bout so far as they start to come alive just a touch.
Yeah, Mesa just brought him back in with a good two-punch combination that on our scorecard scored points.
Kenny Friday on the right in the blue. Arnaldo Mesa of Cuba in the red on the left.
So far, Kenny just hasn't been able to get inside and score.
We'll be back for round two after this. Back for round two at the Sports City Coliseum for this featherweight final between Arnaldo Mesa in the red from Cuba and Kenneth Friday in the blue from the United States.
In Kenneth Friday's corner, Kenny Laura, the head coach of this Pan Am team, told him, you got to put your punches together. And Tom Mustin, the assistant coach, said, Kenny, he can't fight backing up. Back him up. Come forward and put pressure on. Let your hands go.
If Friday would go on to win this bout, he would buck a trend, because the American boxers are 0-4 against Cubans so far.
Good work there by Mesa.
Mesa sticking that right jab in Friday's face.
We should take a moment, Mark, and explain that there is electronic scoring here. 5 judges at ringside. Each has a handset. When they see a clean blow land, they punch a button. Red for the boxer in the red corner, blue for the blue corner. Now, here's the key point. At least 3 out of the 5 judges, there you see one of those handsets, at least 3 out of the 5 judges must push the button within 2 seconds for the punch to count. The computer then adds up all the blows, and the boxer who is credited with the most blows wins.
Alex, you talked about the scoring. Scoring is done by those 5 judges. Both the standing 8 count and the mandatory 8 counts are in effect. 3/8 in a round or 4 in a bout will terminate the bout. And 3 cautions for the same violation lead to a warning and a subsequent 3-point deduction. 3 warnings will result in a disqualification. As the crowd comes alive, Mesa connected with the left hand.
And nothing, absolutely nothing coming back from Kenneth Friday. I mean, Kenny knows what his problem is. He knows when you talk to him, he says, I have to let my hands go. I have to be aggressive. I have to punch. And he just is not doing it.
Are you surprised?
It may be because the Cuban is the southpaw. It may just be because the Cuban is very, very talented.
Friday missing with the right hand. Mesa counters with the left of his own. And now he peppers Friday's face with a series of blows.
And Kenneth Friday should pick his left hand up and try to block some of those punches. That kind of posturing is just suicidal against an opponent of this quality. Kenneth can get away with it in the early rounds, not in the finals against the Cuban.
Mesa working the body and the head.
And there you hear the Cuban crowd, as we pointed out all week, Tiralo, drop him.
Friday still carrying that left hand very low, Alex.
The biggest bout of Kenneth Friday's career, by far. He has never won a major amateur tournament in the United States, much less faced an opponent as good as this.
And Mesa still teeing off on Friday, shoe shining a little bit to the head.
And Kenneth Friday not coming back with anything.
This is the end of round 2. This is round 3 action of the featherweight final between Kenneth Friday of the United States and Arnaldo Mesa of Cuba in the red top.
Pretty slow first round, Mark, and then Mesa really picked it up in the second round, and Kenneth Friday could not stay with him. Good right there by Mesa of Cuba in the red on the right.
Now Mesa is starting to throw combinations.
And starting to drop his hands. Posturing on the outside. Arnaldo Mesa sometimes is just in and out with straight punches, and then sometimes he'll go side to side like this, bouncing a little bit, drops his hands on the outside, and tries to get his opponent to come to him and then pick him off as he comes in.
The referee issuing a caution to both boxers. To Friday for listening to the commands. He should listen to the commands, the referee says. To Mesa for holding.
Kenny isn't listening to anything. He's not listening to his corner. He's not listening to the referee. And he really isn't listening to himself as he talked to us earlier, prior to this bout, in terms of what he had to do to get it done.
Friday trying to find the range, but falling short.
That time he got inside with the right hand, but when the Mesa head was open, he chose to drill the right to the body.
Despite the depth and excellence of this Cuban boxing program, they've only had one champion at that weight class. That was Adolfo Porta back in 1983.
Second caution to the Cuban corner for coaching. It would be a brave referee that would issue a third caution and banish Alcides Segarra, the Cuban coach, in front of these fans.
Not in his gym.
Maybe the only building in Cuba where Segarra may be a bigger star than Fidel Castro, who's sitting up in the stands watching.
Mesa body shots, and he slips out nicely. The referee issuing a caution. That's Jaime Vargas of Venezuela.
There was a right hand, a scoring right hand from Kenneth Friday. But with little more than a minute left, it's just too late for Kenneth to get his wake-up call. Mesa of Cuba on the right, on our scorecards, unofficial of course, has built up an insurmountable lead.
Mesa throwing combinations, and there he lands a right jab. Arnaldo Mesa trying to atone for his performance in the last Pan American Games, where he was the only Cuban boxer not to get a medal.
Just picking Friday apart with the right jab alone. And you see Kenny, he just can't get in range. He just can't get inside the jab. He's just lunging around the ring, and Mesa's just dancing out of the way. And Arnaldo Mesa is not one of the true skill boxers on this Cuban team. I mean, there are some, like Julio Gonzalez, but Mesa is generally more stationary, and yet Kenneth Friday has not been able to find him at any time in this match.
Winding down to the end of the third and final round, the Cuban ends it like he started it, punching. And there's a look at the Cuban leader, Fidel Castro. Alex, when he arrived at the Sports City Coliseum, the place just seemed to lift up.
Yeah, and can I make a little political judgment here?
Please.
I was here in '87 when Castro came in the first time I ever saw him. I must say that I thought that the ovation in '87 was about 3 times as long and about 3 times as loud. Whatever that means, I have no clue.
Por puntos, en la esquina roja de Cuba, Arnaldo Mesa.
Arnaldo Mesa wins the featherweight gold medal.
And the judges only gave Kenneth
medals. They now lead the U.S. 128 to 124 as we go to Mark Jones.
Julio Gonzalez will try to punch his way towards Cuba's 5th straight gold medal in the competition. His opponent, Patrice Brooks of the USA.
Julio Gonzalez, the defending world champion, the reigning world champion, the defending Pan Am champion, outstanding boxing skills. His opponent, Patrice Brooks of the United States, 20-year-old student at St. Louis Community College, won last year's Olympic Festival. He has some international experience. Patrice, of all the American boxers, has adjusted the worst to the conditions here in Cuba. He's had about 4 or 5 days of very bad intestinal flu. He says he's been okay the last 2 days.
The referee for the bout is Antonio Bernaldo of Brazil. This is round 1. Brooks in the blue top, Gonzalez in the red.
And there you see Julio Gonzalez looking about as awkward as I've ever seen him look. He generally is just a mechanical robot. Tall, obviously, very tall. For a lightweight, 132 pounds. We don't know exactly how tall because the Cubans won't let us measure him. But he's just a mechanic. You see there, pick with the left jab. Get out. Don't get hit. He's the consummate amateur boxer. Patrice Brooks, the southpaw American. Good reflexes, good boxer himself. Patrice likes to fight a very controlled pace. He doesn't like awkward, kind of brawling, aggressive opponents. And Julio Gonzalez really is not that kind of an opponent. So that's to Patrice's advantage. His disadvantage is that Gonzalez just is a great boxer.
And he showed it earlier in the tournament as he had one stoppage to his credit, and he defeated Delroy Leslie of Jamaica by a margin of 14-3. So it hasn't even been close in the case of Julio Gonzalez of Cuba. Brooks drabbing, but not finding anything on the other end.
Again, a good right by Gonzalez. And he's got Patrice Brooks backing up, but Patrice does not back up well. Very few boxers do, but Patrice likes to come forward behind his jab, and he just has been totally blown out here in the first half of round one.
Gonzalez hit him with a swooping left hook that just glanced off the chin of Patrice Brooks, and there, Gonzalez lands another one. Patrice Brooks
is just eating right hands right now.
Oh boy, is he ever.
Some people think that's the way to beat a southpaw, is to drill right hands, and Julio Gonzalez has done it. Caution there. I believe the referee's going to have the doctor take a look at Patrice Brooks. He may have a cut. We don't see one.
There is blood.
There must be one.
There is blood coming from his mouth.
Looks like the lower lip.
Here in amateur boxing, they are very concerned with the aesthetics. They don't like to see a lot of blood dripping from.
Don't get worried, by the way, Mark. That the Americans wear red mouthpieces, so don't get worried about all that red you saw when he opened his mouth. There was blood, but not that much.
We'll have to see if this wakes Patrice Brooks up any.
Poor Patrice has had trouble sleeping all week. And he is weak. I mean, whatever he says, you can't be strong enough to fight world champions on a diet of potato chips the way Patrice Brooks has tried to do.
Now the near-capacity crowd starting to sense something happening as Gonzalez hits Brooks with a right. Follows up with a combination. And Brooks clinches.
And Gonzalez, Julio Gonzalez of Cuba in the red, is getting very aggressive for him. There, caution to the Cuban from the referee for holding. Gonzalez senses that he's got nothing in front of him and he wants to take Patrice Brooks out. That is not like Julio Gonzalez.
Very long, very lean, but he does have a bit of pop in his gloves.
And there, that is very unusual too. And he gets a caution from the referee.
A little posturing on the part of the Cuban.
Bolo punching was great for Kid Gavilan when there was pro boxing in Cuba, but the amateurs frown on it.
One of the great Cuban boxers of the past, and a standing 8 count now being issued to Patrice Brooks, the first one of the bout.
Not for any particular blow, but simply because Patrice was getting hit repeatedly.
Winding down to the end of the first round. This is second round action at the lightweight final between Patrice Brooks of the United States and Julio Gonzalez of Cuba. Brooks trying to break the American drought. They are 0-5 against the Cubans in the Pan Am Games.
And in the corner, Coach Kenny Lord told Patrice Brooks of the United States in the blue on the right, you've got to move to your right. And Patrice knew what he was talking about. The only way to avoid that Gonzalez right hand that Patrice has been eating is to get out of the way, to move in the way that it's natural for a southpaw to move, and that's to the right.
Gonzalez getting in and out, throwing combinations. Brooks landed a short left jab, right jab. The last American to win at this division was Pernell Whitaker in 1983. And Americans hoping that the sweepy this time is going to stand for Patrice, but so far it hasn't been the case.
Pernell Whitaker is an outstanding professional, but he was an unbelievable amateur. I mean, his whole boxing skills, defensively and offensively, are set up to be a great amateur. I thought he really deserved to be named the outstanding amateur at the '84 Olympics in Los Angeles. You see Patrice trying to fight back here. Not as much aggression from Gonzalez. He's giving Patrice a little bit more distance, and that's what Patrice likes. He likes to be able to come forward, and he is coming forward now.
And now he traps Gonzalez on the ropes, but Gonzalez slips away.
Never know what goes through a boxer's mind, but why Gonzalez, who was just tattooing Patrice at the end of round 1, would adopt this kind of a style coming out in round 2 that allowed Patrice to get back into a little bit.
And Brooks might have been hurt by that right hand.
Yeah, allowed him to get back in as long as Gonzalez didn't throw the right. As soon as he threw the right, he caught him with it and has caught him repeatedly with it.
He's getting drilled with the left and a standing 8 count to Patrice Brooks, and he pleads in protest.
He pleads in protest and he wipes the blood away from his face. He's a mess.
Patrice Brooks trying to survive here in round 2. Fighting gamely. Brooks has Gonzalez against the ropes, and then Gonzalez turns the tables.
And the referee cautions. I thought he was going to give another standing 8. Cautions Patrice Brooks for turning his back on his opponent. Oh, solid right hand. Best punch of the bout by the Cuban on the left.
And another right hand. Gonzalez enjoying target practice.
And even though Patrice, you see him every once in a while trying to move to his right, you see Gonzalez hooking and keeping him right in front of him. Watch the left by Gonzalez. He's keeping Patrice in front of him so he can land the right.
Alex, do you think we may see the referee or the jury stop it anytime soon?
Well, we've seen the jury, which we've never seen before. We've seen the jury actually stop bouts 3 times in this tournament. But Patrice Brooks has to be right in the verge, and he knows it.
Winding down to the end of the second round. Well, we're back for the third and final round of this lightweight final between Patrice Brooks of the United States and Julio Gonzalez of Cuba. Gonzalez trying to make it 5 straight for the Cuban boxing team. They have 5 goals.
Julio Gonzalez in the red, the right-handed boxer again, landing the right, has to have the left and the right. Gonzalez has to have a huge lead. I mean, Patrice Brooks has had his moment. He has had scoring blows, but they have been very few and very far between.
I mentioned earlier, Alex, that the Cuban boxers had 5 goals already. I want to correct myself. They only have 4.
In the Cuban corner, Alcides Segarra told Gonzalez, be smart. When you hit him, don't stand there. Get out. Think about defense.
Patrice Brooks fighting gamely here in round 3.
And I think one of the reasons that Alcides Segarra would be so, as the referee steps in there for a moment, he's going to bring Patrice Brooks over to the American corner to check on a shoelace that's come untied on his right boot. Let's just make a point. It may be that Segarra, who you see there, the man referred to as the cast there, you saw him. We talked about the intelligence, just pointed to his head. Use your head.
And now the referee, Alex, is telling Gonzalez to look at me. Don't get any coaching from the corner.
One of the reasons that Segarra may be cautioning Gonzalez is that this bout has been marked by as much hard punching as we have ever seen in an amateur tournament. Almost half the bouts, well, 42% of the bouts, have failed to go the distance coming into today's bout. And it's partially because, and I think predominantly because of the Cuban gloves they're wearing. Batos gloves, we talked about it before. Very little padding across the knuckles where the contact is made and where you get your power. And a number of Cubans have been hit hard, and one of them, Juan Hernandez, was actually dropped by a very inferior opponent. Came back to win the bout, obviously, but you can't take chance. Oh, and now Patrice Brooks went down himself. I don't know what happened. There was no blow struck, and he's going to get a count. And the referee may take, oh, no, he's going to let him go on.
Okay.
I have no idea what happened. No blow struck. He just went down to gather himself to something was bothering him.
Now, that was the 3rd standing 8 for Brooks. One more in the bout, and it'll be over.
Julio Gonzalez can count. And you can see him trying to get that 4th standing 8.
Less than a minute to go in the 3rd round. Julio Gonzalez still throwing punches. Brooks trying to slide them on the ropes. Now they clinch. Referee issuing a caution to Gonzalez. Patrice Brooks, give him credit. He's thoroughly outclassed, but he's in there firing. He has not been healthy.
He's been terribly depleted by an inability to eat and drink. Now the referee steps in. He's going to have the doctor look again at Patrice Brooks. But despite all that, despite being in with a world champion, he has hung in there, barely.
They are putting some tissue on the inside of Brooks's mouth, trying to absorb some of that blood. The referee watching intently, and he lets it continue. Gonzalez still punching, and he caught Brooks with the left.
And continues in the closing seconds about to find a home for that right hand.
It's over.
You see the jubilation in the Cuban corner, and it's justified. Solid performance by their world champion. Let's take a look at that strange moment in round 3 where Patrice Brooks went down. We didn't see a blow landed. Let's take a look again at the action. Patrice leads with the right. Gonzalez comes with the left over. Patrice continues to pursue. 2 blows that missed. We didn't see him land. And all of a sudden, Patrice went down. No idea what happened. Let's go up for the decision.
Vencedor por puntos en la esquina roja de Cuba, Julio Gonzalez.
Julio Gonzalez, the winner. As the Cubans improve to 5-0, and now let's look at that scoring margin.
It may be the widest margin we've had here. It's certainly very close.
So it happened in 1987 in Indianapolis, and it happened here again. The U.S. fails to medal. American Steve Johnston tries to end the American drought for gold in the light welterweight final. His opponent, Edgar Ruiz of Mexico.
And Mark, if the United States is going to win a gold medal, Steve Johnston better do it right now. He's the youngest member of the U.S. team at age 18. He is an American amateur champion. And he's the kind of a fella that, and he's got the kind of opponent that if they're going to win, this is the guy who has to do it at light welterweight. He has had a lot of breaks in this tournament. His scheduled semifinal opponent broke his thumb and allowed Steve to rest, but he had some bad luck of his own a week ago, and we asked him what happened.
Well, some of us was getting weak because of the food. It wasn't cooked right. So the coaches went out and bought us some, and I had got a canned ham, and I was trying to open it, and it was tight. It was hard to open. And I kept doing it, and my hand slipped off of it and cut it right on the edge.
6 stitches?
6 stitches.
Will it be a problem in the final?
No, because I'm going to be a little bit too hyped. I ain't going to think about it much, but probably afterwards it will be.
Well, Steve Johnston's got a big break because he's the only boxer here who will not be facing a Cuban in the final. His opponent, Edgar Ruiz of Mexico, also 18 years old, last year's Mexican national champion, only 38 amateur bouts reportedly. We don't know much about him as a boxer, but we found out something about his acting ability in the semifinal when he was losing to a Puerto Rican opponent named Arnaldo Acevedo, the only man in this tournament to beat a Cuban opponent, and by doing so became the man to beat in light welterweight. First round action, Ruiz behind on points, but Acevedo on the left. Watch that left hand right there. Not a hard blow particularly, but Ruiz went down, and he stayed down. He refused to continue, and the referee disqualified Arnaldo Acevedo. And it was another break for Steve Johnston. He does not have to face a Cuban, nor does he have to face the man who beat a Cuban.
Well, the referee in the bout is Alfredo Toledo of Cuba. And when you look at the measurements of both the fighters, have a look at what happens, how they measure up in the ring. Steve Johnston will be approximately 5 1/4 inches shorter than his opponent. And have a look right there.
Steve Johnston really always is shorter. He almost always is at a height disadvantage. It will be interesting. Remember the cut that Steve talked about? It's on his right hand, middle finger of the right hand.
Johnston moving in with the left and a right. Left one landed.
If there were an opponent other than a Cuban that Steve would most want not to face because of crowd reaction, it would be a Mexican. The Mexicans have strong crowd support because Mexico has always maintained relations with Cuba. and also because the Cubans like to root for underdogs, and also because they like to root against Americans, who are their arch rivals.
And we've learned that down here. Steve Johnston is in the red top. His opponent from Mexico in the blue.
Steve is a southpaw, as you see, turning his opponent, but not really landing any blows here in the first minute of the first round.
For his walkover, Johnston defeated Mark LeDuc of Canada by a margin of 12-6 in the quarterfinals.
Crowd clapping now, not rooting for anybody, saying, let's see some action, guys. A little bit strange kind of style for Steve Johnston in red of the United States. Generally, he stands his ground a little bit more and kind of tries to come forward behind a right jab.
Ruiz landed a left to Johnston's body.
Steve's got outstanding hand speed, outstanding reflexes. He's a boxer. Rapid punch there by the Mexican, and he gets cautioned for it. Well, no, he doesn't. He gets cautioned for having his head too low by the referee. Steve Johnston got cautioned for turning.
Alex, we learned a lot about Steve Johnston and some of the obstacles that he has faced in Denver, Colorado, just trying to make it into the ring. A lot of things involved outside the ring that would stop many people, but Steve Johnston has been a real portrait and courage carrying on with his boxing career.
There you see some trading on the inside. That's more where Steve Johnston is used to being. And obviously where his Mexican opponent Ruiz is at a disadvantage. Oh, good uppercut there. Right uppercut by Steve Johnston.
Johnston finding the range inside now.
One of the questions about these electronic scoring is, do the judges give credit for those kind of punches on the inside? Do they see them? And do 3 out of 5 of the judges react? Oh, there are 2 scoring punches. Those are obvious scoring punches. The theory is that body punching and combination punching no longer work in amateur boxing with the electronic scoring.
A good right hook hurt Edgar Ruiz.
Johnston backing his man up, and that really is the way that he fights the most effectively. He's got the got the Mexican backing up.
This is the end of the first round in the light welterweight final.
Steve Johnston, United States on the right hook. Now watch for the left in combination. Those 2 punches were so obvious they had to be scored by these judges.
Steve Johnston solving his taller opponent in the first round, landing those 2 and a few more blows. Johnston is in the red, Ruiz in the blue. This is round 2. Mexican has not won any gold medal since 1971, so this has been a long time between drinks of water for the Mexican boxing team.
There's a live shot of one of the handsets that one of the judges here at ringside right now is looking at. Now watch the punching. Don't look at the handset right now. Watch the punching. When you see the white portion of the glove land by either boxer, then look down and see if he punches blue for the Mexican Ruiz or red on the left for the American Johnston.
Ruiz missing with a couple of punches. Johnston getting him, not a warning, but a caution for lowering his head.
I'll be honest, I can't really tell. There, he punched for the American, for Johnston. So far, Edgar Ruiz has not had a big second round, according to this judge.
Defending champion in this weight class is Candelario Duverhill of Cuba. He lost earlier in the tournament.
You saw there, there you see 2 punches and a standing 8 count. You saw that particular judge scored 2 blows for Johnston, and the referee come in and give a standing 8 to Ruiz. You were talking, and that may, he's going to have the doctor look at him. Cut under the left eye. Big cut.
A very nasty looking one.
And a swelling, and that eye may swell up and affect the vision.
In amateur boxing, the ring doctor and the referee both have the power to stop the bout if they see it fit.
You see there the difference between an amateur doctor and a professional doctor. That doctor was applying pressure to close the wound. In the pros, they would just clean the cut so they could see the amount of the cut and then make a decision on whether to stop the bout.
We'll see if Steve Johnston goes after that cut right now.
Obviously a target for his right hand, for the right jab or the right hook. And as that eye closes on Edgar Ruiz of Mexico, in the blue on the left, he will have increasing trouble picking up the right.
Johnston landed a left hand.
And Steve Johnston, once more, they're going to come over. Again, the cut is opened up.
More blood streaming down from the face of Edgar Ruiz.
If you watch pro boxing, you say, well, what's the problem? The cut is under the eye. It's not impairing his vision. You know, just let him continue. In the amateurs, they are interested in the aesthetics. They don't want to see a guy filled with blood.
Steve Johnston moving in now. Landed with the left.
Steve Johnston should be moving to his right a little bit more because the Mexican has to have trouble seeing the right hand coming.
Alex, in about this short, will you see...
Johnston just caught a good right hand coming in. Can't forget about defense.
Referee steps in and breaks the fighters. Johnston missing wildly with the right hand. And the Mexican trying to hit Johnston with some rabbit punches.
Ruiz in the semifinal took a dive, really, when his opponent scored one single low blow. He got a DQ out of it. He may be trying, you know, everything he can.
Hey, it was a good dive, though.
Got him into a final. Got him a silver medal.
Now the referee stepping in to break the boxes.
Steve Johnston, 1 round away from a gold medal.
Welterweight final between Steve Johnston of Denver, Colorado, and Edgar Ruiz of Mexico. And we have Kenny Lohr, the coach of the American team, wiping off his fighter. Too much water on him.
Steve Johnston really shouldn't, and he's doing the same thing with the Mexican. Steve Johnston really should not be too tired right now. I mean, the Mexican hasn't done anything to take anything out of him. He's had things all his own way.
Johnston not tired at all. Had some time to walk over here and look at our television monitors. Watch himself on TV.
Scored a solid left. Straight left-hander. Get things started in round 3. Both coaches in his corner, Tom Mustin and Kenny Lohr, the head coach, echoed the same refrain for most of the time. Do not get careless. Do not get careless. Keep your hands up. Again, a scoring left.
The United States has won this title 4 times, the last one being Lemuel Steeples in 1979. And of course, Sugar Ray Leonard won this one in 1975. The guy that could box a little bit, Alex.
Yeah, and Lemuel Steeples, one of the sad stories in amateur boxing, one of the young men who was on the plane carrying the American team that crashed in Poland, and he was killed in that crash. Steve Johnston dancing out of danger. He is being careful. If you were doing anything, I would say keep moving to your right. Stay away from the right hand by the Mexican.
Now a caution issued to Johnston for hitting with an open glove.
There you saw Ruiz score a right.
But
Johnston responded with one of his own.
Alex, do you think it's good strategy by Tom Mustin and Kenny Lohr to tell Johnston to be cautious?
Yes.
Even though, I mean,
yes, I understand what you're saying. You shouldn't sit on a lead, and it's too early for a prevent defense, and amateur judges score crazy, and you're absolutely right. But this bout has been so decisive that there's just no way the Mexicans will be within a mile. And the one thing he can do is to knock him out, and that's why they told him to be careful.
And now this Cuban crowd rallying behind the Mexican boxer. But Johnston comes back with a left. Johnston against the ropes, lying dangerously against the ropes.
Yeah,
Moves off.
You saw, you know, he's 18 years old. Both young men are 18, but you saw a little bit of Steve Johnston's inexperience. You know, he's sitting there trying to bob and weave. First of all, you can't drop your head in amateur boxing that low. And second of all, don't stay on the ropes. Move. You got your legs. You got good mobility. Steve Johnston, I think, is busted up in the mouth.
Less than a minute to go in the 3rd and final round.
And it's not crucial, but he shouldn't let it distract him.
Steve Johnston of the United States
started out this round 3 minutes from the gold medal. Now he's less than 30 seconds away. Once again, unofficially.
Now, it should be interesting to see if Johnston does indeed win the gold, what kind of effect it will have on Shannon Briggs, who goes up against Cuba's big hitter, Felix Savon.
Yeah, Shannon Briggs will probably respond, hey, let me go up against the Mexican who got into the finals by disqualification instead of the world champion, and I'll give you a gold medal, too.
So Steve Johnston comes in and apparently does the job in this light welterweight final.
And apparently has kept the United States from the possibility of a shutout, which would be the first shutout they had ever suffered in a major international tournament where they had a full team. He did the job. Now it's just a matter of whether the judges agree.
Steve Johnston, who earlier this week cut his hand opening a can of food, it'll be all forgotten if he brings home a gold medal.
That's right, that right hand that we talked about, 6 stitches on the middle finger a week ago. Same day as his prelim bout. The coaches told him he could box with it. He wasn't sure, but he said it didn't really bother me then during the bout, and he was sure it wouldn't bother him today.
Now let's go up for the decision.
Vencedor por puntos en la esquina roja de Estados Unidos, Steve Johnston.
So Steve Johnston is the winner. From Denver, Colorado, he ends the U.S. drought for gold.
Kenny Lord, very, very pleased. Tom Mustin, the assistant coach, very pleased. It has not been a good meet, but that takes a little bit out of the sting. A little bit of the sting out of the United States showing here. You would be so hyped up that 6-stitch cut on your finger wouldn't bother you, were you?
I was too hyped. I felt I was missing too many punches. I was just too hyped in the dressing room. Coach was trying to tell me to slow down, but every time they left the dressing room, I was up again.
Were you ever able to relax in the bout?
Nuh-uh. I was trying to take him out. I was swinging too hard. I was trying too hard.
Did his height advantage bother you at all?
Nuh-uh, because I'm used to fighting taller people.
Did you have to make any adjustments during the bout?
Yeah, because he was throwing a flicky jab out, and I couldn't get past it. And then in the second round, they was telling me to dip more to my right and catch him with a double hook.
You're 18 years old. Are you going to be in Barcelona at the Olympics next year this time?
I'm going to try. I'm going to try my hardest. That's all I can do.
Congratulations and good luck to you.
Thank you.
The Pan
His name is Felix Savon, a 2-time world champion whose athletic prowess has been his avenue to a better life. Here's Jack Whitaker.
We will never back down. Just one example of propaganda common to the Cuban town that borders on the U.S. naval base at Guantanamo. Before the revolution, the city depended heavily upon the base for its livelihood. Now, like the rest of Cuba, it struggles along in the face of economic difficulty. At the edge of town, one finds the close-knit Savon family, whose only son of 5 children isn't around much anymore.
He's always been so wonderful to me. When he's not here, I feel bad. I'm sad, nervous, and even cry.
For the past 10 years, the boxing ring has been second home to Felix Savon. He stepped into it at 14 and has since won the '87 Pan American title and 2 world championships.
My parents did not want me to be a boxer. They tried to exercise their control over me and not push me. Now they don't mind. They're happy.
And so is Felix, winner of 7 straight national titles in a country that makes heroes of its greatest boxers. He enjoys his elite status and all the pampering that goes along with it.
To be Felix Savon is to have doors open for you wherever you go. They say, there goes the champion, Felix Savon. And wherever I am in Cuba, it's a real privilege.
Of course I'm proud of him, because he is the world champion. He has won many medals, and he has done so much for Cuba.
The young man from Guantanamo is the latest edition of the handsome Cuban fighter originated by Teofilo Stevenson, the idol of Felix Savon.
Well, this awesome boxing machine of Cuba's has already won 9 gold medals. Savon is up next now, and let's join Mark Jones and Alex Wallow.
Felix Savon is the marquee name in Cuban boxing. His opponent in this bout, Shannon Briggs of the United States. Alex, this is the heavyweight final, the gold medal match. We haven't seen many heavyweight bouts in the competition.
Very strange Pan Am entries into this tournament. Only 3 heavyweights. Shannon Briggs of the United States got a bye all the way into the finals, a silver medalist without having a bout. Felix Savon of Cuba had to box Tom Glesby of Canada in the semifinals, and in that bout, Felix did nothing to hurt his reputation. Savon on the right, Glesby on the left. First, watch for a Glesby punch, not that one, but stand by for Glesby there. That right hand seemed to hurt Savon, wobbled him a little bit. He lost his balance, but then, from pushed off on his right foot and dropped Glesby down, and the fight was stopped seconds later by the Canadian coach as he threw in the towel. Felix Savon, you see him there walking into the ring. Only 23, the most dominant man in his division of any boxer in the amateurs. You hear the reception of the crowd. This Cuban crowd has been almost nonchalant so far during this bout. They've had so many gold medals here in Havana. But they're into it right now. This is one of their superstars. He really is the man on this Cuban team. His opponent, Shannon Briggs, just 19 years old, new kid on the block from the neighborhood of heavyweights, as he says, Brownsville in Brooklyn. This produced Mike Tyson, and there is Shannon Briggs. You see the unique hairstyle, the orange-colored dreadlocks through the headgear. Mike Tyson, Riddick Bowe, 2 of the heavyweights that come out of Brownsville. Shannon has had only 23 bouts as compared to Savon's 240 plus. But after seeing Savon in that semifinal we just saw tape of last Wednesday, Shannon Briggs said he was not intimidated.
He's big. The fight with the Canadian, I found that he could be hit. You know, he's a big guy and he seems a little uncoordinated. You know, he's so tall and everything. He bends down when he throws his shots. Hopefully I can catch him when he has to squat down to throw that big right hand, and he doesn't seem too fast to me, you know. But he's a good fighter. He's world champion, so I'm going into the fight, and I'm going to be thinking a lot, you know.
Well, he would do well to think a lot and react a lot. He does not look intimidated. And you see Castro, he likes it, as does Teo Stevenson. Actually, Teo doesn't seem as interested. Teofilo Stevenson, 3-time world and Olympic champion. And Felix Savon there, himself a 2-time world champion, has always been a little bit resentful of having to work in the shadow of Stevenson. Ever since he was 17 or 18 years old, people have been calling him the next Teofilo, and Felix resents it a little bit, trying to make a name for himself.
The referee for the bout is Antonio Bernaldo of Brazil, and this is the big bout. Savon in the blue, Briggs in the red. The Cubans have won 9 goals to date, with 5 of them by stoppage.
If Shannon Briggs doesn't find a way, and it would be, you know, an upset of mind-boggling proportions, but if he doesn't find a way to win this bout, it will be the worst American showing in the Pan Am Games way back since 1951, which is they only had 8 bouts in 1951, and Argentina won all of them first year. But since this really became the Pan Am Games as we know it, the least we've won, I believe, is 2. So far, only the one by Steve Johnston.
Briggs missing with a couple of jabs. Savon pumping his left jab as well.
Felix Savon in the blue of Cuba. When you see him, you know, you heard Shannon say he looks a little uncoordinated. He is not a fluid boxer. He's got a phenomenal body. I mean, for any athlete. I mean, just incredible physique. But he does seem awkward and a little bit uncoordinated and stiff. There's nothing fluid about Felix. I mean, the biggest reason he's been able to establish such a reputation is the heavyweight division in amateur boxing just does not have very much talent in it and has not had any for a while.
Alex, to take a trip down memory lane, the last American to win this weight class was Dwayne Bobbick back in 1971 in Cali, Colombia, and I'll give you one guess who he beat.
I happen to know that because Dwayne is a good friend of mine, and the man he beat was Teofilo Stevenson, who then went on to beat Dwayne in '72 at the Olympics.
Briggs very cautious here early in the first round. Shannon Briggs has become one of the villains here of the Cuban crowd because of his outward cheering for his teammates during some of their bouts. Savon hit him with a right, a glancing right.
And that is the Savon power punch, as you saw on the replay with Gillespie. Savon's really done Shannon a favor here by fighting such a slow pace and a controlled pace. There, the right.
Oh, and he goes down.
End of controlled pace.
Hammer time in Havana. Shannon Briggs is in trouble.
Yeah, no, stop this. He says he's all right. Said he hit me on the elbow. Shannon did not put his gloves up, and they did not stop it.
Felix Savon registers the first decisive blow of the bout.
Decisive is an understatement.
Less than 30 seconds to go, and Briggs is out of it. He's out on his feet almost, Alex.
They'll stop it. That's it. Yeah, Shannon just doesn't understand what he has to do in amateur boxing. He hasn't been around long enough. He was badly hurt by 2 power punches, and they're just not going to let it go.
So Felix Savon makes it 10 golds for the Cubans. He ends it with 15 seconds to go in the first round. Shannon Briggs still protesting, though.
Shannon was thinking, and Felix was punching. That is the 5th stoppage in the 11 finals so far by the Cubans. There's just been a phenomenal amount of bouts not going the distance here. Either being knockouts, referee stops contest. The percentage of short bouts here, let's get the decision.
SCH, en la esquina azul de Cuba, Felix Savon.
The winner by RSC in the blue corner, Ventura, Felix Savon.
There's Felix's little victory dance. He's still got his headgear on. Shannon Briggs has the haircut. Felix Savon has a first-round win.
And he is a real showman, Felix Savon.
Comes over to the American coaches. There's Tom Mustin. So now Felix Savon is a 2-time Pan American Games champion. And that win ties there, watch how big he is, over the top rope. Just the way Teo used to do it. We're going to take a look at some of the action. It's really pretty easy to call in terms of replays. You see that hand right there, the right hand of Felix Savon? Just keep watching it. The left actually did help there in causing the knockdown, but it was the right that stunned Shannon Briggs to begin with. Now, let's take a look at the punch that caused the referee to stop it. Boom, drilled him. Obviously, Shannon Briggs needs to be held up by the ropes. And when that happens in an amateur bout, almost always, the referee will stop it. Here's a reverse angle. Savon on the right here. There's the right hand. Briggs goes over to these ropes on your left, is draped on them. I'm surprised the referee even gave him 3 or 4 count. One final angle on the end of the fight. Watch Savon. Boom. Right on the point of the chin. Shannon Briggs said in his pre-fight interview he's uncoordinated. He can be hit. He also can hit, and he did hit.
Did he ever? It's going to take a tank to stop this guy in Barcelona.